The following is a Claibs online production. Lunch with Claibs and Joe on claibsonline.com.
And welcome on into a Monday edition here of Lunch with Claibs and Joe. As Claibs, we're about 10 days away from Thanksgiving, and as you can see with the cars behind us, we are at the Toyota dealership, not Munganass anymore. Not Munganass. Look at this. It is Munganass and Burkhardt.
Get out of here.
Toyota in Alton, Illinois. Look
Nice
at that,
job.
Clay. Yeah.
Very impressive.
Look at that. Jamie got
Got his name on the
shirt.
name on the house. Look,
I know.
How about that?
Yeah,
That is nice.
He told me a while ago that the change was coming. I didn't know that it was for sure. And he's been back there, I don't know, making deals and whatnot back there.
He's
on
ordering
the phone.
T-shirts.
Yeah, and I'm walking back over there by where the T-shirts are, and I stopped because I'm like, that looks different. And sure enough, it's because Jamie's name is on the shirts.
Well
now.
deserved.
Yeah.
God, I've known Jamie for years and watching him ascend in this industry. And to have his name on the door is quite an accomplishment.
I don't think they've put the name on the door yet. So far, maybe they've just added it on the shirts. But sure enough, I mean, next time we come in here, it might be his name, his face, everything. All over.
He just ought to go with the name.
Hey, with the holidays coming up, you can rent a car here from Munganass, Munganass Burkhardt Alton Toyota.
I was thinking about that when you brought that up, and it makes so much more sense. Mm-hmm. First of all, you're going to get a top flight car. Secondly, it's better than a test drive.
Yeah.
Because you can take it around the block. I mean, what do you learn out of it? But if you put it on the road and you get a real feel for it, probably make a good deal on it.
Yeah, I was considering I was going to get one this weekend before I went to Nashville, but with the numbers on the rise the way they are, I think that trip might have to be postponed like every other thing that I've had so far in 2020. But I might still leave here with a rent a car.
Take it around the block.
Yeah, I might just see.
Go get some groceries with it or something.
Yeah, see if Jamie will let me have it through at least maybe Thanksgiving or something like that. Yeah. So I'll
that you have anywhere to go, but
no.
It's out the driveway.
No, I'm basically coming back here. My parents live 5 minutes away from here, so that's where I'm going for Thanksgiving coming up in a few weeks. So here we are. You got us for the next 40 minutes, whether you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, or you're listening to the podcast later on claibsonline.com. We've had so much this past week over on Claibs Online. You have been very busy now that the Cardinals are in the offseason. You had interviews last week with Jackie Joyner-Kersee, with Doc Emmerich, with who else did you have on the show?
Good question.
Last week?
They all started to run together.
Jay. You had Jay on
Randolph,
you had Jay Jr. on the show last week, and we'll get to what you and Jay talked about in just a bit. But we've had so many instances here. We start off with some bad news, and that's where we are today. Is St. Louis radio lost a legend this past weekend in KMOX's Bob Hamilton.
Yeah, Bob started right before I did, and so he was always the night guy, the weekend guy. He had that great voice. Never saw him have a bad day. Always, no matter what was going on, he always had a great air about him that you appreciated. But this we used to have, and I'm sure Rick Wallace may be watching. Rick Wallace used to do the best impersonation. So Bob would wear his wristwatch face in. He'd talk like this, to hear himself. And he could transition. So it was always, let's get back to Cardinal baseball. So, for instance, he reads some news stories. Maybe there's a rain delay. He reads some news stories. Final story, tragedy struck. 7 young children died under the age of 10 in a house fire. Their parents in intensive care, not sure if they're going to make it. All right, it's almost time for Cardinal baseball. Let's go back to the ballpark. Here's Jack Buck. Hey, listen, he didn't care what was going on. It's time to go back to the ballpark. Hey, Rick Wallace could do it, so Rammer could do it too. And we would just sit there and watch him do this. He would read the most tear-jerking story there would be. And then he said, skies are clear. It looks like Cardinal baseball is coming up. Let's go back to the ballpark. Here's Jack Buck.
I never had the pleasure of meeting him, but I saw so many tributes over the week about him just being the nicest guy, as you mentioned, never had a bad day. But the impressions, I think, is one of the things. Yeah.
He would go all over the world on vacation. He'd go like to Peru and South America. He didn't go to those traditional vacation spots. He would find places in the world to go to that would be different, and he'd always have some sort of trinket or something he'd bring back. But yeah, we're going to miss him. I don't know if there are going to be people like him in the future. And I think he got out at the right time because he saw the business changing, in my opinion, for the worse. And he got out, and he lived a healthy life up until recently, and he'll certainly be remembered.
Yeah, it's again lost. What was he? 74? Was that the?
No, I think he was like 82.
Was he 82?
Yeah.
I thought he was younger than that. So he that was the news this past weekend. But as we mentioned, you had Jay Jr. on this past week. I was like,
I'm baking over here.
Scoot in a little bit.
I feel like a Thanksgiving
we can
Day
scoot that
turkey,
over.
right?
You're going to be just fine. The sun just is going to travel with you, and
keep
it's
moving
going to
over a little bit more, and that way I'll be in the shade.
Keep moving. So now I got to move the camera over too.
Hey, we'll just
we
do
got
this.
the camera up like that, and look at that. Now, look at that. It just there. You better now?
Yeah.
You better.
better.
And we still got the Toyota in the background, so they're the folks here at Munganast Burkhardt Alton Toyota are still happy. That's going to be hard for me to work into all of the live reads that I'm going to have now coming up on the show.
Be versatile.
I know. I'm going to have to keep remembering that, and it's going to take me a lot of cuts to keep making sure I make Jamie happy now that he's a part owner here at Alton Toyota. But the Masters this weekend, it was it was different to see it in November, and we'll get into the way it changed the NFL schedule this weekend. But Dustin Johnson, first time ever minus 20. At the Masters, is that just him being on his game this weekend, or was that the conditions?
I think the conditions had a lot to do with it. I mean, think about Saturday when they started the second round or the third round. The top 3 golfers in the world were all 1, 2, and 3. Never happened before at the Masters. Everybody brought their A game for the most part. The first couple of days, and then when the course kind of dried out a little bit, we saw a little separation between the two. I thought it was a very entertaining tournament. It's my favorite because it's at the same place. You know what it's going to play like, and they don't trick it up. You know, like the U.S. Open or the PGA, they grow the rough, high enough where you can lose your golf bag in it, and they do all sorts of tricky things. But the Masters, it's you and the course. And I thought some guys really played well. It's always interesting to see the human side of golf when Tiger takes a 10 on a hole. And I'm like, man, so what's the big deal?
I've done that back before. With like 3 straight birdies after that,
was
too.
5 out of 6?
Yeah, he just comes
5 out of 6. 5 out of 6 last holes.
Bryson DeChambeau did the same thing. I mean, lost his ball. They couldn't find his ball, and then he comes back and he birdies the next hole. So I think I saw a few instances this week where there were shots. I know Rory had one really, really bad shot. Was it Tommy Fleetwood that just kind of hit a low line drive and then a second shot into a tree?
Yeah.
I think at one point, and you look at that for a second, you go, hey, they're just like us. Like, that's what I do on the golf course. But then when they come back and they birdie the next hole, you realize, no, I could never do that.
Yeah, I'm always still MFing the last hole. So
right, they have one bad shot that's like what you do on the course, not 10 like what you do on the course or more.
Yeah, I'll tell you one of the other stories about the weekend was DeChambeau. When he started coming up with excuses on why he wasn't playing well, nobody wanted to hear that.
No.
I was a little dizzy. I didn't have COVID. Oh, so you just weren't very good. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Why don't you say that instead of using excuses? Because I think the target's already on his back as it is. A, he's not a well-liked guy because he takes too long to play. B, he shows up with this new body and just turns it into driver wedge everywhere he goes. And that makes a lot of golfers uncomfortable in how he got
driver
there.
9-iron on a 570.
So, when you see that and then you start coming, hey, all you have to do is say, you know what? I didn't get off to the best of starts. And when you play this course, it'll make you pay for it. And I'm paying dearly for it. But I'm going to go out tomorrow and see what we can do to get this thing closer and see what happens.
Yeah, and that's with someone like him who used the quarantine, used the shutdown to get as big as he got and to change his game as much as he did. You don't want to hear, it's going to be all or nothing.
He's going to go out and
he's going to win a tournament. He's going to run away with it, or he's going to have a terrible week and not be able to play. And you don't need excuse for somebody like him.
Absolutely. Let me ask you something. And you're a trainer. You know what this is all about. Did it seem odd to you for a guy to blow up that quickly? And I mean, there's so many things you can take supplements.
There's a lot of stuff he could take to make that happen.
Just, when you look at him last year, he was always a guy with a big frame.
Yeah.
But, for him to blow up in the manner that he did, and then I heard him tell Faldo it was all about his traps. And he was doing a lot of trap work in order to create power. And I'm like, okay, that sounds like a standard stage line. So, and I think that's what's rubbed people the wrong way with him. Nobody felt sorry for him.
No, you can very easily make adjustments like that and make big changes to your body in 3 or 4 months when you have nothing but time on your hands.
Well, he didn't have anything but time.
Yeah, and I mean, did he maybe have some assistance with some things? I don't think that many people would argue that, yeah, he has. But to go out there and do that, I just think that if you are that committed to it and you are that committed to making that change, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities. That if you just spent those 3-4 months in the gym 4-6 hours a day when you have nothing else to do, if you're just eating right and working out and playing golf, you can make those changes. But to make drastic changes in that short amount of time, you're going to fall back and you're going to play poorly at times. There are times where it's going to catch up with you and you're not going to be able to adjust the way that you do. Everything's either going to click or it's not. Yeah. And this weekend you saw it not click. So yeah, it's, I see it. I'm surprised it didn't happen with more golfers, to be honest with you.
I agree.
So you're going to turn right back around. This is something I talked with Andy about this weekend on the show. So you had the Masters in April of 2019, November of 2020, and you're going to go back to having it in April of 2021. The conditions were different. The conditions this past weekend were different than what they played in April of 2019. You mentioned that they play the same course every single year. They're used to that. Tigers played this course how many? 20 times? Now, times that by 4 plus practice rounds. This was nothing like they saw before. Do you wipe this weekend from your memory now as a golfer and go back to everything that you knew about it?
No, I think it's just something else you file away. I think anytime you can play the course, you work to get better. So I don't think it's one of those situations where I'm going to forget about it. You think Cam Smith's going to forget about this weekend?
No, first time ever that somebody shot in the 60s all four rounds.
So I think that each individual has to take something away from it to build on what they had a chance to do. Again, we go back to the weather. That rain on Thursday really kind of leveled the playing field for a lot of people. And some people were able to respond, others weren't. I thought Johnson played a really solid round, took enough chances to push the envelope, but didn't do anything stupid. And it was just his time to break through. And, he's another interesting guy on the tour that didn't have a lot of friends early on for some things that were going on. And I think he's kind of leveled off things, but he's a good player. There's no doubt about it. I'm always intrigued to see young players that we've never heard of. I mean, there were a few guys that I never heard of that found themselves in the hunt there for a while. And that makes it fun because we'll see them again and we'll see how much they've improved in some of the other tournaments that will be coming up down the road.
You mentioned the rain. Did you watch any of Sunday Night Football last night?
I did.
The end of that game reminded me of the highlights I've seen of the fog game that the Eagles played in on Monday Night Football.
Bears?
Yeah, where you could not see them. You could not see a thing on that final drive for the Ravens. Where if that's the first quarter of a game, they're not playing. They're taking them off the field.
No, they're going to play. There was no lightning.
That was awful to watch.
Well, you know what? Here's what's awful about that. It was played on an artificial surface. Had that been played on natural turf, it would have been a much more entertaining game. And I think the artificial turf, there's just too much slippage. You just really never had your feet under you. You play it on natural grass, there's a different setup completely. Let's just lighten it, man. You play. And I know that you haven't seen it as much as I have, but I remember there was a time players used to love playing in those kind of conditions.
I really thought that the Ravens, their only shot at winning that game, that final drive, would have been if Lamar Jackson just ran it the whole time. The drop back and then just run, because you saw they weren't going to catch the passes. Yeah, you saw that any moves that he could have made on people, they would have slipped and fell. He could have easily gotten 20, 30 yards at a time and gotten out of bounds.
See, I think that these guys today would have been better equipped to play in. These tackified gloves that they use now, you keep changing them out. There's no excuse for some of those guys not dropping balls. I mean, now, does a quarterback put a glove on and make sure he's got a better grip? I don't know. But I expected a better game with the conditions. And it just tells me that while they're better technology-wise and better equipped, they're not better to be able to handle it. And obviously they don't play in it, and a lot of times they don't practice in it. You see a drop of rain now, they just take everything indoors compared to standing out there. And I know Chris Collinsworth touched on the fact that Patriots have been practicing at night all week, just preparing themselves for that environment and those conditions. And I think that made them the better team.
Yeah. What are they, 4-5 now on the year after a few really bad losses? Yeah. They're right back in the playoff picture, which, again, this year, you're getting more teams in. It's not 6 teams, or it's not not 6 teams. It's 7 teams from each conference are making the postseason. So you're going to start seeing those the playoff picture.
You're going to have a team under 500 in playoffs.
And the NFC East is going to send somebody to the playoffs that's going to have 6 wins.
That's right.
So you are going to have a under 500 team for sure.
You're right.
Out of the NFC East. It's those wild card teams that are one of those teams going to be 7-9 when they make it in. But you mentioned the gloves, the tacky gloves to make the catches. DeAndre Hopkins yesterday, the end of that game, the Hail Mary catch on his end. He just went up there and got it over 3 guys. You could talk about the gloves all you want. It was still impressive that he went up there over those other 3 and caught that ball. And brought it down and held on to it.
I wonder how many times when Bill O'Brien sees him, does he ask himself the question, if he's still been in Texas, I'd still have a job.
I do not understand
that got personal.
Yeah.
See, this is why you can't have a general manager coach. And it got personal, and he moved him for all the wrong reasons. And that was the beginning of the end of his tour duty in Texas. But, it was an exceptional play, and he caught it at the height.
Mm-hmm.
He was just able to outleap everybody and come down with you. That's a good point you make. A lot of guys come down, but if a good defensive back, he's in between your body and the ball trying to strip you, but he was able to hold on. And the Arizona Cardinals are fun to watch.
They are. The Buffalo Bills too. The drive that Josh Allen made to put them in the lead. I am biased towards Josh Allen because I have him on both of my fantasy teams this year. So I am biased towards him, and he has won me a lot of games in 2 leagues this year. But I really do think that Josh Allen should be in the conversation for MVP on the season. And I saw a stat as I was driving in here today. They have 3 losses. The Bills have 3 losses on the year. They have lost to the Chiefs, the Titans, and now the Cardinals. The combined record of those 3 teams is 20-7. So they have lost to 3 of the best teams in the NFL this year, and Josh Allen has put on some really impressive performances.
Why does it have to be a quarterback?
It doesn't. It doesn't. But
why wouldn't? And here's my question: I'd vote for a guy who was an offensive left tackle who hadn't given up a sack all year.
Right.
He's my most. If I'm on a good team and I've got a good quarterback, I might say that left tackle might be more important because you don't have a good quarterback unless you have protection. And we're seeing that week in, week out of the teams that don't have it. And
it's like the Heisman, where a quarterback gets it every year unless a running back just does something absolutely amazing.
I think the Heisman Trophy is the biggest farce trophy in sports.
I think recently it has come back. I think if you look at some of the winners of it recently and what they've gone on to do in the NFL,
but that's not what they give it to them though for what they do in the NFL.
Right, but I'm just saying I think it's legitimized that for a while you give it to a running back who would get drafted 20th and then not do anything.
I'm voting on what he did in his college. See, and that's the mistake that I think people make. We think this is based on what his future is going to be.
I'm not saying that.
We're voting on what he did in college that year.
Right. What I'm saying is, it's, when it went to somebody like Tim Tebow, who then went on and didn't have much of an NFL career, you kind of look at that and you go, okay, you know what? You gave it to him for what he did in college. And he wasn't that great afterwards. I think that what you've seen some of these guys go and win, they win the Heisman, and then they go on and they play well.
Done two different apples and oranges. What he does the next level shouldn't have any impact on his success as a Heisman Trophy winner. You ever heard of Hugh Green?
No.
Hugh Green might have been the most dominant defensive player the game has ever seen in college. He played at Pitt and should have won the Heisman. He was that good. I mean, he played with a guy named Ricky Jackson. They were both linebackers. And what they did at Pitt was we haven't seen anything close to it. And everybody felt like he should have been the Heisman Trophy winner. And then he goes to the NFL and had an okay career, had a couple of injuries. But the argument always was, well, we don't care about what he did in the NFL. Look at what he did at Pitt, because I'm telling you, Hugh Green's about 6'3", 6'4", 225, 230, and was a stand-up defensive end. He and Ricky Jackson just destroyed teams. But I bring that up to say, don't base what they do at the next level. If he dominates, and the problem was, because he was a defensive player, they didn't give him his due because they didn't have enough stats to track. Mm-hmm. They had sacks and tackles, but, in college football, we base quarterbacks for nominees because we can track their stats better. He's on a winning. He's won X amount of games. Well, wait a minute. What about the tackle? What about the center? What about the receiver who came in with? They won those same games too. And that's where we separate the definitions of awards. That's why I think the Heisman's just total bullshit.
It's going into this year, it's going to be really hard to give out any of those awards in college football.
Yeah.
With the altered schedule, the way that the schedule has gone, and now with all these canceled games, we had, were there 4 games in the SEC canceled this week?
And then one out. Arizona was canceled.
Yeah, Big Ten games. You've had those already canceled. And they've only been playing for a couple weeks, and they've already had multiple games that have been canceled. You're getting all these games around the country that have been, and you mentioned, Pac-12 had games canceled before they even kicked off the season. And already here we are on Monday, and already a game this Saturday has already been canceled. If you haven't seen that, Texas A&M and Ole Miss has already been canceled because of the outbreak for the COVID outbreak on Texas A&M's team. So you're getting all these games canceled. They're not having games made up. They're not going to be able to have some games made up. And maybe they do instead of going to bowls. Instead of going to some of these bowl games, maybe they just say, you know what, we're going to play this conference game this weekend instead, because that's more important than these bowl games where we don't want the kids traveling to those cities anyway.
Let me ask you something. Did this thing kind of go according to plan as far as when they decided to play football? Did you envision this?
I think it was always something that people thought was going to happen. I think they always had an idea that there was a very good chance that there could be multiple games canceled. But I think a lot of these universities had hoped that the numbers would trend downwards. Then that's not what's happening at all in the slightest.
Well, I don't know how they could think that, dealing with the fact that they're dealing with a bunch of college students who don't adhere to rules and regulations well. I never thought this thing was going to work. I just thought that they needed to wait. And the Big Ten was doing the right thing until they got pressure. And it's just going to be this is going to be a debacle before it's over with. And everybody's going to lay claim to the fact that, we would have won if we'd had everybody healthy. And then the teams who won are going to say, we toughed it out. It's just it's a shit show.
Yeah, and then the NCAA came out today with a statement in regards to basketball, saying the Division I Men's Basketball Committee has decided that the NCAA tournament should be held in a single geographic area. As a result, NCAA staff are in preliminary talks with the state of Indiana and the city of Indianapolis to potentially host the 68-team tournament around the metropolitan area during the coordinated dates in March and April. So it looks like March Madness is just going to be in Indiana this year.
With or without fans?
I think I would say by the time we get to March and April, limited fans, especially in the state of Indiana, I think you will allow limited fans far away from the court. You think what the stadiums that you have in Indianapolis, you have
what's Butler's Field House.
Yeah.
You got
wherever the Pacers play, the field house. Is it Conseco Field House or whatever they call it now?
It'd be the Steak and Shake Arena at this point.
You could have 2 games. I mean, you really could set up 2 courts inside of.
And you could do the same thing at the Dome.
Yeah,
at their stadium, football stadium.
Lucas Oil. You could have 2 courts there. I mean, if you're not going to have fans, you're going to have limited fans. Put 2 courts on there and have them play. It'll be like playing I guess
you don't want to go
tournament.
back to the bubble in Florida. Huh? Maybe you know what though. Maybe they just said, well, we need to see what the NBA is going to do first.
And that's their season is what, 5 weeks away from the start of the NBA season, December 22nd. They haven't had the draft yet. They haven't put out a schedule yet. They haven't decided where they're playing yet, but yet the season's supposed to start in 5 weeks.
They can do it. I think what they did to pull this thing off in the first place was miraculous. And they have seemed to have formed a template that every other sport's kind of going by now. And that's not my concern with them. They've shown me on more than one occasion they can adjust on the fly.
How close have you been paying attention to the NBA draft that's apparently this Wednesday night?
I've been watching it. There's some interesting players. I think we're going to see a whole lot of trades because it's a very soft free agent market. The kids that you bring in, I'm not sure if you can say when they're going to be ready, because they won't have any summer league games to play in or anything like that. So I think you're going to see a lot of trades, and I think the trades can start today, if I'm not mistaken, or this week. So you're going to see some big names get moved. There's some guys already jockeying for a situation. James Harden, guess what? He wants to go get traded.
He wants to go to Brooklyn.
He wants to go to
Brooklyn, play with Kevin Durant.
You know what? There's a guy I could do without. I mean, everywhere he's gone, the team has gotten worse, but his numbers go up.
Yeah.
So, and I don't see how he and Durant and Kyrie Irving all going to be able to survive.
There's a guy, and it's been a while since I've looked at anything draft related, but there is a guy, I can't remember what his name is, that I want the Bulls to get, and I can't remember what his name is, but he has a great name, and I know he's a top 5 pick, and the Bulls have, I think, the 4th pick.
Is that the Euro?
No, I didn't think it was.
There's a Euro it looks like they're going to go after. He's kind of a better version of Tony Kukoc, from what I'm told.
I didn't think that was it, but I'd have to look at the name of what it is.
There's some good players out there. I just don't know how developed they're going to be to help a team unless you have time to build. But you know, if you're like second end of the draft, you're not trying to draft these kids. They can't help you. You're trying to win now, and that's why I think you're going to see a lot more trades take place. You know, if the money can balance out. I just want to see one trade. I want to see Lakers trade for Bradley Beal.
You think that's possible?
Yeah, why not?
Obi Toppin, by the way.
Oh yeah,
Obi Toppin. I want the Bulls to get him just because I like that name and that's my team.
Everybody seems to think he'll end up in Cleveland.
Yeah.
But he'll be there before Cleveland picks.
Yeah.
He's a good player.
You going to get Fish on this week? You going to talk to Fish at all before the
No, I am
draft?
talking to Bill Duffy.
Okay.
Bill Duffy is one of the premier basketball agents in the world. Some of his clients go back to Yao Ming and Jay Williams, Zach LaVine, your guy in Chicago. He's got a very healthy list. And we're going to talk with him tomorrow night and get his thoughts, not only on the draft, but the way the international game works, and also what's the direction of the league. I mean, they can opt out of the contract. I think it's after next year. Mm-hmm. And they have a great partnership. So I think that might work well for everybody. But we're going to talk with him about it.
All right, we're going to come back. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll wrap things up with some baseball talk right here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Munganass Burkhart Alton Toyota, and sponsored by this man, the home loan expert, Ryan Kelly.
Mike Claiborne here with the home loan expert, Ryan Kelly. Ryan, the rates are now in the 2s. What does that really mean?
True monthly savings. If your current mortgage rate is not in the 2s, we need to talk. We're saving our clients hundreds, even thousands of dollars a month. TheHomeLoanExpert.com.
And look at that. We give you a 10-second commercial break, and during that time, we got breaking news for you on something that happened in the NBA with a trade.
Chris Paul gets traded to the Phoenix Suns. The Suns sent Ricky Rubio, Kelly Oubre, and Ty Jerome, along with Jalen LeCay, to the Houston Rockets.
Any draft picks?
I'm sorry, to the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Just players, no draft picks?
They had to clear cap space. He makes $40 million.
Yeah.
So, you know.
That Suns team, I mean, if you remember, they went into the bubble, they went undefeated in the bubble, but still.
Melvin Booker's got a leader on that team. The big center they have is a really good young player. If they were in the Eastern Conference, I'd say they'd make the playoffs. They're in the West. And if you're on the back end of the Western Conference, you got some concerns now.
I mean, you're going to have teams like if the Rockets give away James Harden and they already have a new coach there, they might fall out of contention there in the West.
No, I agree with
if you have a team like the Rockets fall out, you're going to have other teams that are going to make their way in.
No, I agree. I think there's some teams on the back end that have to say to themselves, what are we going to do? Because Phoenix now puts themselves in a position to contend for a playoff spot.
Yeah.
And now think about this new play-in format they're going to use. You know, that from 7 through 10, now we'll have their own little play-in round, which I think is something everybody might want to take a look at because it's going to create fan interest for sure if you ever have fans back. So, again, I told you we're going to see some trades. This is the first of many, I think.
I mean, if anything, that the play in there, the NHL did it with the way they did the play in and the top 4 seeds. Baseball did it by adding more teams in. It's, you know what, it's not going to be like the old days where you win your conference, you're automatically in the championship. You know, it's more teams are making the playoffs, and it all has to do with money. And you know what, 5-10 years from now, we're going to look back and it's all going to make sense to us, and we're going to forget what it was like when it was just two or four teams that made the postseason. In baseball, by the way, big news last week in Major League Baseball is the Marlins hired the first ever female GM. Kim Ng was hired there. Her first day was today. You've had a chance to talk, to meet her, talk with her, and you had some positive things to say about that.
You know what? She's earned her stripes. I mean, I got news for you. She's better than half the guys who call themselves general managers. Knows the game, very well connected, embrace analytics early on, and knows how to apply it. Can do anything in an organization. And I think her versatility is going to make that Marlins team even more competitive as far as how to be able to assess your talent and know what your vision for that talent is going to be like.
I'll tell you this. I think her first move is going to be a big splash. I've been saying it for a few weeks now. I think Yachty ends up with the Marlins.
Okay.
I think Yachty goes to the Marlins. I know the story came out over the weekend about the teams that are interested in him. The New York team's interested in the Cardinals still are in the running for that. I think a team like the Marlins that just made the playoffs this past year, that made it out of the first round, the wild card round of the playoffs this past year, they could use a veteran leader like Yachty. He stays in Jupiter for spring training, gets to stay down in Florida. That's my prediction for where it ends up.
It's one that's viable, but here's what I find entertaining. The rumors that these teams are interested in. Let me tell you how that works. Having a little agent experience. You're the general manager of the Hooterville Hornets. Hey Joe, I got a player. You like Yachty? He's a great player.
Yeah. Hall of Famer.
He's a good player, isn't he?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to know if you liked him. All right, I'll talk to you later. And then I go call John Heyman or somebody and say, hey, I just talked to Joe Roderick, the Hooterville Hornets. They're interested in Yachty. They like him.
I just want people to know that I did not make that prediction to you ahead of time off the air or anything like that. No. That this is me just straight spitballing out here. And then you know what? As soon as we hit end broadcast on this, I'm going to turn to you and I'm going to say, so what are you hearing about that? You're going to hear
So no,
you're going to tell me some other
that thing. Happens so much where agents stir this pot.
Yeah.
Okay. The good general managers and the good teams, they don't talk about what they're interested in. This is all agent speak. And all they want you to do is pick up the phone and say, hey, I talked to Joe Roderick. He really likes my guy. And he tells whomever who lives in the rumor mill, and there you have it.
Well, I'll tell you. So there are 29 teams in Major League Baseball that like Nolan Arenado, and 29 teams that like Francisco Lindor.
Absolutely.
The Cardinals are one of those 29 teams on both of those. Is there any possibility that you see big moves like that, big trades like that being made in this offseason with so many question marks?
I think that
and this is a question, by the way, that I think we're going to keep asking every single week
I think
until spring training.
Because of the uncertainty on where we're going with this thing and how quickly can teams get healthy again. Now, the Cardinals would seem like an ideal situation because they have so much money coming off the books next year.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, with Nolan Gorman coming up at some point, why would you invest in Arenado?
Right.
Because this guy ain't going to cost you anything. Arenado has proven himself, and the question is, can he get any better? I don't know. I think the Lindor situation is a little bit more unique because you have nothing behind you in the Cardinal organization shortstop-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, nothing. Delvin Perez has not turned out to be the player you thought. You've got the kid, his mom coaches at Baylor, Connor Robertson.
Okay.
He's a young man who may be able to play at some point, but they don't have anybody who has the skill set that Lindor has. So that would be something that I would be intrigued in. But I think, they're going to wait. I think this thing is going to drag out all the way up until the beginning of spring training, whenever that's going to be.
Right.
I don't think spring training will start in February. I don't think we're going to see a 162 game schedule. I think you're going to see it start in May, and you'll have 140 games. You bang the All-Star game, and you just play through.
Right. Before we get out of here, by the way, anything that you think Tony La Russa, the stuff came out about him last week?
No, we'll move on from that.
Okay.
He'll come out and make a statement, apologize for his actions, and
right. And it was just, it was more, I guess, more gasoline for the fire in Chicago media. That
they didn't like
the move
exactly
in the first place, and that was just more for them to hate on the move.
I think he'll apologize and they'll move on.
Yeah, it happened almost a year ago. It happened back in February, and it just kind of came out on the light in October. We'll end with this, Claibs. I don't know where you stand on this one either. The old school in you. Do you like the blues, new retro? They're not going to wear it that often, if they wear it at all. But the new all red retro jersey that they revealed today. I
don't understand it. First of all, that uniform base that they were using was the one, I believe. No, that wasn't Ruth Ordonez. That was another one. I was never on board with that uniform set up in the first place.
The blue with the red stripe in it.
You can't miss them.
The Gretzky jersey.
Yeah, you can't miss them. So, I mean, leagues are going to be looking for new ways to create merchandise opportunities.
That's what it is.
I don't know if I'll wear mine to a Blues game or not, but it's okay. I mean, I guess anything that's new and that's non-traditional, you have to kind of wrestle with it a little bit. But you know what? Somebody's going to have an interest in it. And like you said, they're not going to wear it every night.
Right.
Maybe they'll wear it once a month. And that'll be that.
You know what? You can buy it and you can wear it to a Cardinal game in May or June, and it'll blend in right there to the colors there.
It shows
so when the Blues are in the playoffs,
your local commitment.
When the Blues are in the playoffs and you're going to a May or June Cardinal game, you can fit in and still support both teams.
I think you're right.
People are going to buy it. That's what it's a money grab. That's exactly what it is. It's like when MLB puts out the new hats every holiday. And they find different ways to put out the hats with the stars and stripes or the camo or whatever it is on there.
You know what, though? How many people really buy this stuff? Apparently they do because they keep selling it.
Yeah, I was going to say, enough to justify producing that.
I don't know anybody personally who owns any of it. But I guess somebody's buying it.
I have bought one Cardinal hat, I think, in the last 8 years. And that was during the shutdown. And that's because I was buying a lot of stuff I didn't need on Amazon, and I just scrolled through, and I saw a Cardinal hat. It's the one that has the S, the T, the L, and the logo on the bottom. I guess what would you call it, like the Ozark symbol from like that. I saw that. I had to have it. I ordered it, and like 3-4 weeks later, it finally came in. So that's the only Cardinal hat that I have bought in the last 5-8 years, and it's because of the shutdown. So you have a pretty big guest lined up this week. Is that still happening?
Supposedly have Mookie Betts. I'm waiting on the call today. We're going to visit with Bill Duffy, talk some NBA. And as you well know, I always have something in my back pocket I'm working on for later in the week.
All right, NBA draft is this week, so plenty of stuff to talk about with that. If you missed any of the show, it'll be up on the podcast site later on today at claibsonline.com as we are here from Munganass Burkhardt Alton Toyota, a new name for an old sponsor here on Claibs Online. We are also powered by Ameren, Illinois, and sponsored by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Find him online at thehomeloanexpert.com. That's going to do it for us today. Have a great rest of your Monday, everyone.